Hello, Bobby Torres here with a full studio tour of my recording studio, Frightbox Recording. Now, I've had a lot of people reach out recently and ask what I have going on in my studio. What am I using to record? Do I have a drum room? Do I use an analog console? So I've decided to make things simple and show you exactly what I have going on in my recording studio, where I record metal bands and hard rock bands full-time for a living. Now, a quick word of warning, if you're a gearhead, you're gonna be disappointed. My studio is nothing more than a glorified project or home studio. You won't find any fancy converters, microphones, preamps, nothing. Most of the gear that I own, any kid could own in their home studio in their bedrooms. Over time, I really whittled down my setup to what I need and got rid of everything that I don't need. High-end preamps, excessive amounts of microphones that I'll never use. My focus is to be as clean, efficient, and organized as possible. Now, it's more than just me. I have a few other engineers that work out of my studio, and I want it to be the same for them. I want sessions to be ran smoothly, and I want the bands leaving having had a great time with a killer product. And also, I wanted to put out this video just to show you that you don't need a traditional studio to run a full-time career as an audio engineer. These days, with the killer gear that's available for really cheap, you can make 100% professional productions in your home studio. Again, my studio is a glorified home or project studio, nothing more. It's about how we use the tools, not the tools themselves. So without any further ado, here is a full studio tour of my recording studio, Frightbox Recording. Enjoy. Okay, so here we are in my main room where most of my recording happens. Now, we do everything in here from drums, vocals, reamping, guitar recording, everything. Now, like I said, I do have a second small spot, which we will check out after I fully go through this room. But in that room, we mainly just record guitar DIs and vocals. But for now, let's start here. I'm gonna start all the way from the right-hand side, and I will work my way towards the left side. So in this corner is my favorite Mesa Boogie cab, actually my favorite cab in general, packed full of V30 speakers. If you've ever downloaded my free impulse response, it's of this exact cab. And if you haven't downloaded it, you could download it right now if you'd like. There's a link below in this video's description. Now, there are some drum bags here. This is the house kit, which is not set up right now. Most bands that come through here utilize my house kit. So I have everything nice and in tune, fresh heads on for when the band comes in. Okay, over here is a secondary drum set. A few of my friends use this room to rehearse from time to time, and this is the drummer's drum set. Shout out to Pat Cancion, if you're watching this video. Okay, here is my snake box. So pretty much all of my microphones get plugged into this single snake right here. Got 16 channels that I could plug into, 2 headphone outs, a 1/4-inch input here that goes to my interface, which I haven't used in well over a decade, and an output that I use for reamping. So as you can see, pretty minimal. Now, there are 2 amps here. I do use the amp heads, both of these 5150s, but I do not use the actual cabs. I'm not a big fan of Marshall cabs for metal. I do use Marshall cabs for rock once in a while. But again, I'm not even really a big fan of 2x12s. This is the smaller Mesa 2x12. I do like the sound of the bigger Mesa 2x12s, but I do not have one of those at the studio. So again, it's the Mesa 2x12s that are actually oversized that I'm a fan of, not the smaller ones. To me, the smaller Mesa 2x12s are a little boxy sounding and just a little phasey sounding. And yeah, that's what these amps are here for. Now, I'll show you my interface in a second. It's nothing fancy, but this is the right side or left side of my room, depending on which way you come in. Oh, quickly, I just want to mention this. If you look here on my door, I have all these remote controls. This is to control the lighting. So check this out. If I turn all of these off, this one controls my drum corner of the room. So if you look at the drum corner, it's dark. Click this little remote, and voila, the drum corner is on. And this guy here says desk lights. Click this on. My desk is off right now, turn it on, bam! My desk lights, as well as some of these other lights, are on across the room. And then finally, the table. Right now the tiki table is off. Click this little button here. Bam! Tiki table is on. So as you could tell, I like a nice, clean, simple, minimal setup. I know I preach this in all my videos, but as you can see, I practice what I preach. Now, back in the day, I've had this room for 15 years. It used to be a disaster. Gear all over the place. Bunch of gear I ended up buying that I didn't use, I ended up selling off. and now I only keep what I need. So right here is just a little tiki table. If you're a horror movie fan like I am, you might recognize this setup as being reminiscent from the movie Day of the Dead. There's like a 10-minute scene in Day of the Dead where they have this little like tiki area behind an RV. I guess trying to breathe some life into a depressed underground bunker while the zombie apocalypse is happening, and I've always dug that scene since I was a little kid, so I decided to recreate it in my studio. So you see some flamingos and the tiki corner. This is really cool because when bands are here, if we have 4 or 5 people here, people can hang out, drink a few beers, eat in the corner. There's actually a little table for them, as well as some seating, and yeah, just a little cozy little corner. I also have some horror movie stuff. My good friend Steve printed out, hung up for me. Oh, this is pretty funny. This is Paul Stanley, circa 1987 or 88, I believe, rockin' a thong. So 80s era Paul Stanley of the band Kiss in a thong. What could be better than that? Camp Crystal Lake. This Frankenstein guy actually lights up, but it might be a fire hazard. It's been getting pretty hot. I've had this since 1988, since I was 4 years old. So now I just use it for some extra feng shui and, you know, just some more fun horror vibe stuff. Got a fridge, some beers, some soda, and some Gatorade. None of which I drink. Okay, I have a couple guitars here. These are not mine. They belong to my friend Dom, who uses this room to jam with my other friend Pat, whose drum set this is. Again, my house kit for the bands when we record. It's all packed up right now. But we have a few of his guitars here. I think one is the Mick Thompson Signature Series, and I'm not sure what the other one is. Okay, here we have a shelf with 6 cubes, Super Nintendo controller, Sega Genesis controller, some VHS tapes, and it's hooked up to an old CRT TV that plays a ton of retro games. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, Game Gear, all kinds of fun stuff. Right now we have Friday the 13th on NES rockin'. I have it all on a mini computer with a menu, actually, just to show you. Yeah, so there's a menu here. Right now we're on Nintendo, NES, Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Sega Master System, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, Game Gear, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, Nintendo, all the classic good stuff. Now, like I've mentioned a bunch of times, I like to keep a nice tidy setup. So in these 2 top drawers, I just have all of my XLRs. So in this drawer are all my medium XLRs, and in this drawer are all my super long and super short XLRs. Now I can get away with using short XLR cables because I have that snake that's right next to the drum set. And if you've ever done any recording, I'm sure you know that when you use crazy long XLR cables, it can become a tangled mess, which I hate, especially in live situations. But by keeping my snake nice and close to the drums and using shorter XLR cables, really helps make the setup and breakdown process much quicker. Okay, and in this cube, got microphones. Now, if you want to see my full mic collection, I'll leave a link below in the video's description. I've done that in the past. There's a video up here on YouTube. Again, the link is in the video's description. Miscellaneous tools, like a hammer and other stuff. A coffee pot, thanks to Mr. Ben Karras, who does a lot of recording out of this studio as well. And the final drawer here is just full of drum hardware. And right here are all of my microphone stands. Now, before I get into the contents of this shelf, I just want to mention I have 2 TVs here, CRT of course, that play a constant loop of VHS tapes. 4 years ago, I went through the painstaking process of digitizing every single VHS tape that I own. And it plays on a constant loop in this studio. I also have the exact same thing going on in my home studio at home, as well as my studio downstairs, which we will get to later. So drawer number 1, headphones. Drawer number 2, 1/4-inch cables, speaker cables, and a couple DI boxes. And the last drawer, just extra foam for some baffling when we mic drums. So as you can see, in this one corner, I have all of the gear that I need to record bands. Aside from my interface and speakers, this is it. Remember, you do not need a lot of equipment to make great recordings. And just to save time, I'll just say in this shelf right here, we just have some menus, paper towels, and cleaning supplies. And that's it. Okay, and here is my desk. Everything is run off my 2012 MacBook Pro. Very old computer, but still runs really well, although I should upgrade. just to be on the safe side. Now, if you look at my racks, it looks like I have a ton of stuff, and I really don't. As a matter of fact, I have a MIDI Verb 3 here, which isn't even connected. I bought this around 14 years ago and used it a handful of times and never used it again. And I have a Rocktron Hush, which I believe does not work. The only reason why these two pieces of gear are even here is just to fill up this rack. And honestly, if I were to sell them, I would end up getting like $20 or something, so it's not even worth selling. Just a regular computer monitor. Now, I have a couple of monitors here, but in all honesty, I do not mix in this studio. I mix at home on even smaller speakers. At home, I mix on a pair of IK Multimedia iLouds, which I think are only 3-inch speakers. I prefer to mix on really small speakers because they make me focus on the mid-range, and I check my low end with headphones. But these are just a pair of old Samson Resolves from 2005, which I know pretty well because I've been using them again for 15 years. And they're not bad. Now, as far as the interface I'm using the Motu 8 Pre ES. Just a super clean, transparent interface. What's cool about this interface is that it actually has a built-in mixer. So if you were doing live shows, you can actually mix a band live while simultaneously tracking multi-tracks to your DAW. Now, I don't use it for this purpose, but it can be done if I ever need to do that. And I'm piping in an additional 8 channels with a second interface, the Motu 8 Pre. So I have a Motu 8 Pre light piped into a Motu 8 Pre ES for a total of 16 ins. Me personally, I don't need any more than 16 ins. Now, the great thing about this 8 Pre ES, the main interface, is that if I ever did need another 8 inputs in my system, it can accept another ADAC connection. So in theory, I could have a total of 24 inputs, but I've never needed over 16. Now, if you notice here, no fancy preamps. Any piece of gear that I've ever owned that I realized didn't make much of a difference, I ended up selling off. And in all honesty, the less stuff I have here that could break, the better. And right here is the old Mackie Big Knob. Unfortunately, they don't make this anymore. They still make big knobs. All of the big knobs that they make actually have interfaces built in, but this is just a standalone control center. So it controls my volume. I also have a subwoofer below the desk that I could turn on and off with this B switch. So my main monitors are on A, and my subwoofer's on B. Mute, mono, all the typical stuff. I used to have a standalone headphone amp here, which I still have at my house, but these days I just use the headphone amp built right into the big knob. It does the trick. And this is attached to my snake. So all of the inputs going into this interface are connected to this snake. Except, I do have one room mic that's behind this shelf that's always set up, that's connected directly to the interface. So when we record drums, we don't always have to set up a room mic. It's all set up, ready to go back there. Actually, let me move one of these tapes out of the way so you can see. Yeah, there it is. It's in the corner. And I found that this shelf acts like a nice natural low pass filter. Just another example of making the most out of what I have. And I've learned this from Steve Albini. He always recommends making the most out of the room that you're recording in instead of relying on a bunch of artificial reverbs. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but you can actually make a small room sound bigger if you put something in front of your room mics or point them away from your drum kit. So again, this shelf acts like a natural low pass filter, filtering out all of the cymbals. It makes my drum sound nice and bombastic and like they're being recorded in a bigger room than the one I'm actually recording in. And also, I have a 1/4-inch cable that's always connected to the interface, so when a guitar player comes in, they can just plug in and we can get right to recording DIs. There's no need to even set up a DI box. Nice and efficient. And this 1/4-inch cable is connected directly to the main interface. So as you can tell, this is an extremely simple setup. It has everything that I need and nothing that I don't. And this is my main room, Studio A, where we do all drums and everything else for that matter. But I do have a second smaller studio so we can have multiple sessions happening at once, which we're gonna check out right now. Okay, and here we are in the Frightbox Mini Studio B. Super simple setup here. Got some seating. I have an SM7B for vocals, some retro games. This TV also has VHSs that have been digitized preloaded on it as well. As a matter of fact, got some Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers rolling. Making our way over, I have a super small pair of PreSonus monitors. I'm not even sure what model they are. I think they're the Eris series. All I know is that they're small, but they get the job done. And for the interface down here, it's a Mackie Big Knob, but the interface version has 2 inputs. No fancy preamps, and this microphone is connected 24/7, so when a vocalist has to come here to record, it's plug and play. And as a matter of fact, we have a 1/4-inch cable that's also connected 24/7, so when we have to track DIs, again, it's plug and play, no setup necessary. And I'm running this rig off of that exact same MacBook Pro. So all three of us, me, Ben Karras, and Brianna Testa, shout out to Ben and Brianna. They do a lot of recording out of here as well. We all run our own laptops. It just makes things easier. And we're all running Pro Tools. Now, if you look here, there's some extra gear. We have a drum bag here that's actually filled with microphone stands, some powered monitors, an orange cab, Mesa cab, a tote full of XLR cables, bass cab, mini drum set. All of this gear has nothing to do with recording. All of this gear is for my side business, Frightbox Recording, that I run with my good friend and partner, Ryan Lehman of Toy Machine. And that is it. So as you can see, it doesn't get much simpler than this, but again, it doesn't stop us from tracking guitars and vocals without a problem. So we could have someone upstairs tracking drums while someone else is down here tracking guitars and vocals on the same project. And of course, it isn't a Frightbox studio without some flamingos. I just love that tiki theme. Oh, and of course, a little mini fridge. And that is all. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the tour. And please let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section below what you thought of my studio. Did you like it? Were you disappointed? Did you think it sucked? I don't care, let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you've liked this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And again, you could download the exact same impulse response that I use of my favorite Mesa Boogie cab that you saw in this video. There's a link below in this video's description to the impulse response. Download it, load it into your amps and plug-in, and get right to dialing in killer metal guitar tone with absolute ease. Till next time, happy recording.